morning, good afternoon, good evening. Here is a story that does not need somebody to introduce it. Here is the story of the scandal of the post office savings bank. This is a real story. The evidence has been circulating in the social media. Most people will be very familiar with it. Let's just listen to a short clip of it.
Do you have evidence that there's this corruption? And if you do, please, let's have it so that the people who are watching this program have benefit of insight to say, no. This is corruption. This is tangible. And surely the president must deal with it. Must be ashamed of it.
Certainly there is evidence. Evidence is there. It's clear. There's clear evidence of the president, involvement of the president in cutting corrupt deals. And one example is the issue of privatizing POSB, and it's very recent. The president actually wrote a directive to the Attorney General's office to instruct the Attorney General to go and impose a so-called investor to POSB. And this, my research has actually found unearthed that the same investor that the president, through the Attorney General's office, is forcing upon POSB has actually gone through the processes earlier on, gone through ZIDA and the joint venture unit of ZIDA. And the joint venture unit of ZIDA had actually unearthed the red flags within this investor group. And this investor group is called Hebrew Investment Group. If you Google it, you won't find it. And it's being funded by one bishop, Morris Brown Gwedegwe. And this Brown Gwedegwe has no history of doing any business in the country. In fact, any search on the internet, it will lead you to a time when he was fired from the Anglican Church by Bishop Kunonga for embezzling church funds. This is the guy who's fronting this so-called Hebrew Investment Group. And this Hebrew Investment Group went through the processes, through ZIDA. And the ZIDA joint venture unit actually flagged up that this is a bogus institution. And they just dismissed them. But what then happens? A presidential directive to the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General's office then writes instructing the POSB CEO and POSB board to take this investor on board. And this is a presidential directive. And the president...
Have you seen this directive?
Yes, I've seen the directive. I have a copy of it.
If you have it, I think it would be prudent for our viewers to actually have a look at it so that they know that you're not
This is the presidential directive. This one. This is the directive from the president's office instructing the Attorney General's office to instruct a financial institution to say, take this investor. And if you research on the investor,
this directive has actually been circulating on the social media, and also the letter from the Attorney General to the same effect, giving credence to the story. If Zimbabwe was a healthy and functioning democracy, then President Mnangagwa should have resigned by now. But Zimbabwe is not a healthy and functioning democracy. And so the whole scandal is just water off of the dark speck. What is more, instead of the president resigning, the regime has gone on to arrest the hosts of this show. And the harassment of journalists and anyone who dares to talk about mismanagement, corruption in the country is the norm. This is the modus operandi of the regime. So those who dare speak of these scandals are the ones who are punished. And those responsible are free to carry on scheming more scandals. I said it here and I'll say it again. Mnangagwa is illegitimate. And it's not only me who say that. SADC and the AU sent election observers, and they came out with a report that clearly stated that Zimbabwe's 2023 elections failed to meet Zimbabwe's own electoral laws, constitution, and SADC's own guidelines on and principles on free, fair, and credible elections. And therefore, then, the result is totally meaningless. This regime is illegitimate. And so now we find ourselves in this situation where we have got an illegitimate regime, and now it is trying through its so-called ED 2030 to amend the constitution so that Mnangagwa can extend his stay in power, his illegitimate mandate to stay in power beyond the 2028 stipulated in the constitution. It's a nightmare scenario. This is a nightmare. Right now, the nation is gripped with the story of Blessed Geza and his fellow war veterans who in January came out and denounced Mnangagwa's regime, the corruption, the mismanagement, and demanded that he should go. It is interesting to note that Blessed Geza and these war veterans are not the first ones to come up with such a demand. Chris Mnangagwa and the other war veterans did the same thing in 2017, which culminated with the November 2017 military coup that forced Mugabe to resign. What is interesting here is to note that the war veterans have the political muscle to have a meaningful say in the country. Anybody else, you'll be in serious trouble. This is what is wrong with our political system. As much as we have been holding elections, like I said, the 2023 elections, ZANU-PF rigged those elections. The truth of the matter is the ordinary person really has no meaningful say in the governance of the country. War veterans have a veto. They have always had a veto since the country's independence in 1980. When Mugabe let it be known that if ZANU-PF does not win the 1980 elections, the Bush War would continue. In other words, the people's vote in 1980 was of no value at all unless it secured the ZANU-PF vote. And the war veterans, freedom fighters then, were prepared to turn their gun onto the people if they failed to deliver a ZANU-PF victory. They had the veto on who governed Zimbabwe. And so the people who voted to end the Bush War, period. And the reality is they lost a meaningful say in the governance of the country then, and they've never regained it. The euphoria over this blessed Geza, right now, the whole nation is waiting for Geza's signal to go on the street, as they did in 2017. The whole thing is totally meaningless. In 2017, the people supported the coup, believing that it will restore their fundamental right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Mnangagwa promised free, fair, and credible elections. But as soon as Mugabe submitted his resignation, Mnangagwa reneged on his promise. I believe Geza and friends will do exactly the same thing. They want the people to endorse whatever they're doing to pressure Mnangagwa to leave. But as soon as they've Mnangagwa out of the door, they will impose their own dictator, and it will be business as usual. I think the people of Zimbabwe should stand up firm. When Geza gives his signal, they should not answer it. This factional war in ZANU-PF has nothing to do with ending the dictatorship. It is all about swapping one dictator for another, which is what happened in 2017. And the people must now say, we are sick and tired of that. We want an end to the dictatorship. We want the people's right, every Zimbabwean's right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country restored. Because only then, when we have leaders who are accountable to the people, can we seriously expect that such leaders, if they commit such serious crimes as we see here, they will be forced to resign and not turn on to those who dared uncover their wrongdoing and punish them. The host here did nothing wrong. Indeed, he has done the nation a big favor. The POSB is one of the big institutions in Zimbabwe. And to have its assets stolen from the people is an outrage. If we're going to have journalists or anybody else in society who are willing to stand up and hold the regime to account, then they must do it with the confidence that we in society would back them up. It is an outrage that the journalists who uncovered this story is now languishing in prison. And yet those behind the crime are free to continue carry out more mischief, more scandals against the nation. Mnangagwa should have resigned over this scandal. He did not. And already he is pushing his ED for 2030 agenda. He's pushing to amend the constitution to allow himself to stay in power beyond 2028. This is the challenge that the nation is facing. And I think we should be smart enough to stop aiding and abating this regime. We made the mistake of backing the 2017 military coup. We should not make the same mistake again. The infighting in ZANU-PF right now has nothing to do with us. We should take advantage of it, yes, but we should not be seen to be backing it, particularly if we back one side whose intention is to just replace one dictator with another. We want the dictatorship dismantled. We should make it very clear that we are not interested in just swapping one dictator with another. Mnangagwa must go, yes, but we must make sure that we do not make the mistake of replacing him with another dictator. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.